The Minister of Employment, Carla Qualtrough, joins us now. Minister, first of all, I just want to start with the CRA issue and those who may have improperly claimed the CERB. You and I spoke back in December, and you said you will not be revisiting this error, this decision, that those who applied they won't get paid back. Why the about-face on this?
Well, a couple things, Evan. First of all, nice to see you. And secondly, we really dug in. In December, we were not in a position to announce a remedy to this. We had to look at all the complexities of how we could basically administer a situation where we tell people they don't have to make these repayments. We took the necessary time, quite frankly, to come up with a fair and reasonable solution, understanding the various groups that would be impacted by this. And that's how we got to where we are today, saying basically that we provided unclear information to Canadians. Many Canadians relied on that unclear information and applied in good faith for CERB. And we feel now it wouldn't be fair to ask for that money back. If they've paid that money back already, they'll get it back from us.
Okay, that's interesting. There's lots to pick up on. So someone who got the letter from CRA said, holy mackerel, now I got to pay it back. They paid it back. So now I'm just trying to follow the bouncing cash here. They improperly collected the CERB. It wasn't their fault because CRA's rules were vague. They paid the money back that they shouldn't have taken, but now they're actually going to get the money back that they shouldn't have taken because the CRA. Am I actually right on all that?
You have followed it, yes.
Oh, my God. How much is that going to cost us to fix all that?
Well, for the vast majority of people who have already received their CERB payments. So it's not a lot of people who have exercised the option to pay back immediately because, of course, we weren't asking people with those letters to make payments. We were telling them that we didn't have enough information to determine if they were eligible, and we needed more information for them. The challenge we're facing right now on all of these eligibility determinations is many Canadians continue to have not filed their 2019 or 2020 taxes. Obviously, 2020 is just upon us as a tax season, but we need to know people's income before we can determine their eligibility, gross or net.
Okay, so we have no idea then how many people you're expecting that this impacts.
Well, yes, we have a broad idea. I just wouldn't want to put out a number there that isn't accurate because we don't know how many people will become eligible based on the information they provide us. Right. So the big number, of course, is the 440. That you referenced, the 440,000. Of those, many have now provided the information that have rendered them eligible for the CERB. Others have provided different information that has rendered them ineligible, nothing to do with their gross or net income. Say, for example, they were receiving a different benefit at the same time and they couldn't get both. Right. Other people are providing follow-up information to our requests. So, I mean, the better time to have the numbers conversation will be in a couple of months from now when we've gone through the 2020 tax season and more Canadians have filed their 2019 and 2020 taxes.
Wow. And you thought when you were dealing with the Phoenix Pay system that was complicated. What will this communication error cost the government?
Well, quite frankly, it will cost us, in terms of the number, we've already made these payments to Canadian. That's the shorthand version. The reality is people needed this money, and it felt really unfair because we told them different versions of information that we then go back and ask them for this information. So, like I said, we figured out a way that we think is fair and reasonable based on the information we now have to do right by Canadians.
So the premise are also, and you spoke about this tax holiday. So how many people will that, someone who collected the benefits up to $75,000 of taxable income, they'll get essentially a interest-free, no interest on not paying their tax for a year. How many people will that impact, and what's the cost on government revenues on that one?
Well, as you said, anyone who got COVID relief payments from the government last year will not have to pay any interest on any income tax debt until April 30th of 2022. Now, you'll remember, we didn't deduct tax at source for the CERB. We did for the recovery benefits, but not for the CERB. So this is in recognition that many, many people didn't put aside money to pay their taxes this year. And many, many people are still really, not well off because of the pandemic realities. We estimate about 4.5 million people, so 4.5 million people will benefit from this particular interest relief. In terms of cost, I don't have that information at my disposal. I apologize, but it's going to help a lot of people.
Okay, let's move on to the news. Speaking of employment, Air Canada is cutting 15,000 jobs and set to cancel 17 more routes. They've cut half their workforce in total now. Is there going to be a support package for the airlines? Because the company is saying that it's the federal government's new testing requirements and the quarantine rules and the ban on travel to places like the Caribbean are the reason this is all happening.
Yeah. Well, first of all, of course, really tough news for workers and their families and for the industry writ large. You know, we have been telling Canadians, we've been pleading with Canadians not to travel and not to fly unless there's an essential reason to do so. Now, first of all, of course, the airline industry has benefited from our broad measures like the CERB, like the wage subsidy, like the commercial rent subsidy. In fact, over $1.7 billion has gone from the wage subsidy alone to workers in the airline industry. But like you said, that's not enough. And we need our communities to be connected by air. And that's why we committed, you know, in the fall economic statement last year to over $1 billion in support. Now, we're still working out those details with the industry. We've made it very clear that any further taxpayer support will be contingent on refunding Canadians for canceled flights, retaining and reinstating regional routes, all the things protecting jobs across the sector that Canadians have been calling for. But yes, we will be providing a package for the sector. It's just not ready to announce right now.
Okay. By the way, it's 1,500 people, not 15,000 people. I just want to correct myself on that.
Did I say 15,000?
Do you have any idea that? No, I did. No, I'm correcting myself.
Okay.
Don't worry about it. It was me. Yeah. That's all right. I just want to get it right for the viewer. It's 1,500 layoffs. That was my mistake. Minister, real quick, you said the airline industry has been waiting a long time for this package. You said you're not ready. When, though? I mean, we're getting deep in. Those routes that Air Canada, WestJet, they've laid off more than half their staff. Other airlines are going to take over those routes. So when's this package coming?
Yeah, I can't give you a date, Evan. You know, we're continually working with the airlines, having ongoing conversations. You know, of course, like I said, they're accessing our broad measures, wage subsidy, rent, commercial rent subsidy, many on CERB. So people are being taken care of, but we know we need to take care of this industry. We need to keep our communities and our people connected by air. And I don't have a timeline for you on that. Sorry about that.
Two last things on the. I want to just pick up something on the wage subsidy. The Canadian media corporations and telecom companies, Bell, Rogers, and Quebecor all collected the federal wage subsidy and still return profits to shareholders this year. I also should say, of course, that CTV News Channel is a division of Bell Media, which is owned by BCE. Should companies that make profits be required to pay back the wage subsidies they collected when they're laying off staff?
Really good and important question. So in order for companies to get the wage subsidy, they had to have had a significant decrease in their revenue. And as audits are done of businesses and we determine whether or not they actually had legitimately that kind of decrease, they would be required to pay it back if it turns out that they didn't. If they did have a decrease, the whole purpose of the wage subsidy was to take care of workers and make sure that people stay attached to their jobs. So when the economy opened up, we'd have this connection to the labor force still intact in many of our sectors. And so, you know, it's all about the worker, Evan. It's really about making sure people stay, have income supplements and have jobs to go back to.
All right, and just final one thing, because it was a busy news day. Your government made some land border updates. Anyone returning to Canada by land is going to require a PCR test 72 hours before they arrive, I think that begins February 15th, the day after Valentine's Day. If they don't have it, they can be fined up to $3,000 because you can't turn someone away. So let's say they absorb the fine. They say, okay, here's $3,000. Can they go home? Do they have to go to a quarantine site? What happens to them?
Well, what will happen is they have to have a quarantine plan. Anybody coming into Canada has to quarantine for 14 days, as you know, and the Public Health Agency gets to assess the validity or the robustness of that. So same thing with an individual. They have to get a test, and they have to be followed up with by Public Health Agency. They have to have a 14-day quarantine plan, and they will be followed up with. And the $3,000, again, is to remind people how serious it is that we stay put and we, do our best to just stay put.
All right, interesting. All right, well, we'll watch that. that'll be interesting. And Mr. Qualtrough, I really appreciate you being here. Wide-ranging interview, but I appreciate it. Thank you.
My pleasure, Evan. Take care. Be safe.